Welcome to everybody. Glad to have you here on this August 22nd. I'm Lisa Walker of Hyattsville Aging in Place. I'm excited to open this session of Corridor Conversations with Mark Betancourt and Jamila Larson of Welcome Home Neighbors, which moves families from shelters into their own homes. A really great thing that they've been doing for some years now. The program's an example, an amazing example of the community spirit and helpfulness of the Route 1 corridor. And I'm glad to have them here today. I'm going to take a minute just to say things about Corridor Conversations, which was started during the pandemic as a way to get older residents and others together while we couldn't meet in person. The collaboration of the villages of Hyattsville Aging in Place, Helping Hands University Park, Neighbors Helping Neighbors of College Park, and explorations on aging of College Park, and also Gateway Aging Together, which is Mount Rainier, Brentwood, and North Brentwood. Since 2010, Carter told me we have sponsored sessions with more than 50 programs. So welcome to Mark and Jamila. Really excited to have you here. As I said, it's an organization that has, I think since, I don't know, maybe earlier than 2022, been moving residents of shelters into their own homes. Mark's a freelance journalist, and maybe he'll say a little bit more about that. And Jamila's a social worker who works with Playtime Project, which provides children's programs at shelters. I understand that you two have met as parents in your kids' daycare and struck up a conversation about how you might extend this incredible community of support to others in need. So I'm going to ask you, or I'm going to let you tell the story. I think Jamila said that Welcome Home Neighbors started when you met a family who was moving out of a shelter in District Heights, and they were moving without any furniture, without any help. You want to start there, say a little more maybe about the work you do outside of Welcome Home Neighbors, and then how did you meet the family? Jamila, were you working with them already or with their kids? And Mark, were you working on a story?
Well, thank you very much, Lisa. And Corridor Conversations, do I have the name right?
That's right.
For inviting us. It's such a treat to be here. This date felt so long, far off in the future. I can't believe that it's already well past mid-August. So we're really excited to be a part of this conversation. And it's truly going to be a conversation with us. We don't have a PowerPoint, but we've got lots of stories and examples to share and questions that we'd love help kind of deliberating. So yes, I run a children's program at the Shepherd's Cove Family Shelter, which is the largest shelter in the county. It's about 10 minutes away, near the border, near Kenilworth Aquatic Gardens. And Mark and I had talked after daycare, like you mentioned, about just what a wonderful giving and sharing community that we rely on in Hyattsville. If we need a baby bathtub or a step stool for our kids to reach the sink, or when my husband had hip surgery, I think it was it was Aging in Place that gave us that equipment
right.
that we could borrow. And the one common denominator that families experiencing homelessness have is they don't have that social capital. Because if they did, they'd be living with those people. They'd be sleeping on their couch or squatting in their basement. But by virtue of them being in a shelter, basically means they don't have that kind of community of support with the resources to help them weather the storm of homelessness. And Mark and I talk often about how we got all kinds of help. When you think back about going to college, moving to your dorm, starting your first apartment, buying your first house, you imagine all the villagers that came out. Usually it's your family or close friends to help you move. And it's pretty heartbreaking to meet a single mom. In this case, she has a son in a wheelchair due to gun violence. and a little girl who was barely 2, and she was facing moving all by herself on a rainy Mother's Day weekend 3.5 years ago, from shelter to housing with no furniture, just their clothes in garbage bags. So as Mark and I were talking about how we can best support families in that particular shelter, he and I spoke about that family, and we sat down with her and got her wish list. Mark put it up on the Hyattsville email list, and within hours, I think we had neighbors and friends who were offering to send us money to gather the supplies that she needed. We ended up renting a U-Haul truck, and that next weekend, Mark was setting up beds for her. We were carrying boxes. We were putting up lamps, and we really had all of her bedding and kitchenware and everything to make a house a home. And it was a pretty intense experience. A lot of work, but there's also something very appropriately intimate about helping a family move in. You very quickly feel like a part of their family. And you're walking in their bathroom, and you're
Asking them where they want to put stuff and helping them think through like the feng
right.
shui of their new place and
Yeah, exactly. You're under their bed with tools trying to put it together. There are kids trying to bounce on the bed. Um, so it was a very, yeah, intense experience. And then you leave and you're like, oh my gosh, if we weren't here, the family would be sleeping on the floor. They'd be eating on the floor. They don't have any tools. They don't have any mattress pads or sheets. They don't have cookware at the shelter. So it felt like a very win-win solution, and it was something that we could do without that much effort, and it really made an enormous difference. Now, I don't know about Mark, but I kind of thought it was just a one-off because
Mhm.
this family was particularly vulnerable, and we didn't know the extent of the rest of the need. But all of a sudden, the shelter started emailing us referrals. They thought we were a thing. They thought this was an official service. So that's how we kind of organically learned, like, oh my gosh, this is definitely a need that goes way beyond this one family.
Yeah, we sort of stumbled into this gap in services in the county that we didn't know about at all because we had actually talked, I want to say at least months, if not longer, before maybe it was like that fall before that was Mother's Day of 2022, so more than 4 years ago that we did that first family. And we had talked months before about there has to be some kind of way
Mm.
to connect that generosity and the sort of um, communal effort, that we have here. Not just sharing stuff, but even
Mhm.
just, the way the listserv works here, where you can just say, I need this or these people need
Mhm.
this. I remember when we first moved to Hyattsville, there was I want to say like a family from Iraq, I think, who had come and they all needed dental work. I'm sure you all remember that
Mm.
time. Because we raised enough money to pay for all their dental work between all of us in the neighborhood in like hours. It was like one day. Everyone was like, "Yeah, got it," and they were able to do it. They needed emergency work, and that was one of the things that struck me when we first got to Hyattsville is just being like, "Wow, that is really cool." And so we knew we had a lot of power behind this community, and I kept thinking I had joined the HN Parents, the Nurturing Parents listserv, which used to be Hyattsville Nurturing Moms, and we were actually part of trying to get it changed because it wasn't just moms. But I had really wanted to spearhead an effort to use that listserv where people are constantly sharing stuff of like, we're generally just sort of making it easier on each other, but there are so many people who could actually really use this stuff and actually need it right now and have no other way to get it. And I had really been craving that and hadn't really figured out a way to make that connection of like, should we start just posting the listserv things on paper in places? Like I had no idea how to do it.
Mhm.
And you had actually asked, I think on the listserv, I forget
Mhm.
if I ever met the family, but you had asked they needed clothes or something, and I
Mhm.
gave you a gift card or like a Visa
Mhm.
card that someone had given me
Oh,
of like they can use this at least.
right, that's
And
right.
and that was like really the first time we started talking about this.
That's
And then we went for a walk with our coffee in Driscoll Park And thought about exactly this, sort of envisioned
Mhm.
like how do we connect stuff, and we started trying to give the shelter donations. It was they weren't really set up to just take donations that they didn't really
Mhm.
need, and sometimes they needed and they had nowhere to put them and they had no way to sort them. So they sort of put the kibosh on that and said like to stop giving us stuff. And then they asked you to take care of this one family and say, hey,
Mhm.
you've been trying to give us stuff this whole
Mhm.
time.
Mhm.
These people need everything there is. Could you set them up? And that was we were like, oh yeah, we could do that. I had actually done our entire block. I live on Farragut Street, between 42nd and 43rd, and our entire block had done a resettlement of an Afghan family, where all the families sort of got together and
Mhm.
like set up a whole apartment, put everything just so we put coats for them in the closet and everything so they could just show up and do it.
Mhm.
And that was actually a good entree. It was a good training
Mhm.
for what we were
Mhm.
about to get into.
Yeah.
We didn't know it. And so
Mhm.
we had already sort of started the pieces had started coming together. And the
Mhm.
really weird thing was that we didn't know. We had had all these conversations for months about this, and we didn't
Mhm.
know that there was this gaping
Mhm.
difference between getting people housing and getting people set up in a home
Yeah.
where they've got their Section 8 voucher or whatever it is that
Mhm.
has allowed them to finally get housing, and then they're just, sometimes they've been living in a shelter for a year.
Yeah.
And so they've got whatever they've been able to keep with them. A lot of times, I mean, we've met many families who, I was just talking to one this week where they had a bunch of stuff
In
in a
storage.
storage unit because
Mhm.
when they lost their housing, they were
Mhm.
at least able to put that stuff in the storage unit, but they've lost access to it because they haven't been able to keep paying for it because it's taken so long for them to get housing that they
Mhm.
haven't been able to keep up with the $300, $400 a month payments for that. So they've got all of their stuff, they just can't
Mhm.
get to it and ends up getting auctioned off. So it's a really like and when people get evicted, a lot of times
Mhm.
all it takes is that one moment of eviction and all their stuff has been thrown out in the street or into a dumpster because they just I mean I've had people call me. Actually, I was just away on vacation. I had someone text me and say, could you get to our house tonight because we're being
Oh my
evicted
gosh.
and you could take our stuff, even if
Oh,
we can't get it
painful.
back, you could use it for another family or
Oh,
something. They just didn't want it to get thrown away. So it's such a quick and
so
violent
painful.
problem for them to go through. And actually we can talk about this later, but I've always wanted to somehow tie that in of evictions, of like helping people
Mhm.
hold on to their stuff when they get evicted or
Mhm. Mhm.
something. But they that is such a disconnect for people where they get kind of severed from something that's I don't think we think about how much stuff is stability. We think of sort of
Mhm.
accumulating stuff as materialism and it being sort of like unnecessary or not something you should focus on. But when you don't have a bed to sleep in or cookware, that's all. I always try to think of it with our families of it's all mental bandwidth. Not only is it
Mhm.
money, but it's also I mean, just think about moving. And like
Mhm.
any of us who have been lucky enough to move into a space that's larger than the space we were living in before, it's like, oh, now we have to like get a couch, like we have to
Mhm.
think of like, how are we going to find time to do that? And
Mhm.
so I would say the vast majority, right, of our families is single mothers. And it's
Mhm.
just like, when are they supposed to do any of that?
Right.
They've literally got kids crawling all over them half the time when we're moving them in.
Right.
And it's just like, when
Mhm.
were they going to get beds and how,
Yeah.
and how are they, even if they could buy them, how are they going to get them? How long was I muted for? What was have I just been going on
Couple.
for?
Mhm.
Uh, about 30 seconds or so.
Okay, cool. Well, so I mean, I was really just saying that the mental bandwidth that it takes to get all the stuff that you need um is really overwhelming, I think, for any of us, especially like when we've got partners
Mhm.
and family and I can't imagine being a 20-year-old single mom, which we've
Mhm.
helped plenty of people like that, trying to get everything you need to take care of your kids tonight. And they've
Mhm.
just managed to get into the place. And that is
Mhm.
such a
They're so excited.
Herculean, yeah, that's such a
Yeah.
Herculean effort that sometimes it's
Mhm.
taken them months or a year to get
Mhm.
out of the shelter, that they don't care what they have to do. They just want to be behind that door where they get to
Mhm.
lock it
Mhm.
and have that be their own space. So yeah, like you were saying, just having the ability to just like swoop in and be like, we got it, like tell us what you need. And a lot of times people are really reluctant to ask for too much, or they only ask for what we need. And we always say, like, look, we can't guarantee that we'll be able to gather everything that you might need, but tell us what you need. Tell us what you want. Tell us what color you want. Like, if we can get it, we'd love to help you be as comfortable as possible, while still trying to get to you as fast as we can. That's one of the big things. So to go back to the gap, not only is there no official service anymore at the end of the pandemic, right? There was
Yeah,
counties funding.
there was some funding, I think, from the federal or state government that came to Prince George's County where they used to purchase emergency furniture, and that ran out around the time that we were
Ran out
asked
at
to
Christmas time.
fill in. Yes.
It was December
Oh,
of
good memory.
22, I think,
Okay.
because in that December we had a string of people who were all coming out of the shelter all at once, and they all referred each other because suddenly there had been this way to get furniture, and it suddenly just with no notice, they just started telling people, "Oh yeah, that's gone now." So they're like, days away from moving in, and they have no way to get stuff anymore. And it was like the middle of December. And so I remember you were away and we didn't.
It means everything.
Oh, sorry. There we go. Yeah, I mean, I think you were away that Christmas, and the week before Christmas, I just kept getting trucks, like renting U-Hauls, and it just did like 5 families in a row that last
Wow.
week, including on Christmas Eve. And I remember being like, this is awesome because you get to meet the kids that get to like wait for Santa in the beds that you're setting up for them. And I remember really distinctly the last one I did right before Christmas was this family that had 5 kids, and they were all under 10. I think they were
Oh my
under
gosh.
8 actually.
Sleeping on the floor.
All they had was a Christmas tree that someone had given them, and a bunch of presents, which was really nice. That
Oh, that's nice.
some organization had given them a bunch of Christmas presents, but that was literally all they owned. They had a single full-size blow-up mattress, and that was all that was in this apartment. And like I left with, they had all the stuff. They had all their kitchen stuff. They had beds for all the kids to sleep in. And so yeah, I mean, realizing that like that was just funding, right, for them to buy stuff with. There was no transportation, there was no anything. And so it became really obvious to us once we started getting these referrals over and over again after we did this first family where they're like, oh, you do this? Well, everyone needs this.
Yeah.
We started realizing like, oh, this is basically everyone falls into this gap. And it's just the only reason it doesn't happen faster is because it's so hard for people to get housing. Otherwise, I think we'd be completely underwater with work more than we are as it is. But yeah, that's been really striking to realize that we've actually stepped into this space where there really isn't anything. And sorry, go ahead.
No, that's exactly right. And have any of you heard of a wider circle in Silver Spring?
Yes.
We get many people are like, "Oh, what about wider circle?" Do you know how many times I've been a social worker almost 30 years in DC and the past 6 in Maryland. I've referred 0 families to wider circle because the waiting list is 6 to 12 months and the families have to provide their own transportation. Whereas we have so many moms with babies who they're not going to put their car seat in the U-Haul, and many of them don't even have driver's license. And we don't think it's realistic to wait 6 to 12 months for a bed or a dining room table. So it just hasn't worked for our families. And we're on a much smaller scale, of course, than Wider Circle. But there are times that we're able to fulfill from referral to delivery in a week.
I've done it in a couple of days, to be honest. Like when it's a real emergency and people are like, sometimes it's somebody being born.
Well,
we've got a kid coming on the way. Can you get us like a place for this kid to live?
We're at the hospital, we need the car seat, we need the crib. And sometimes we are able to turn that around in a couple of hours. So I think that's almost like the beauty of having volunteers who are passionate. And we don't have staff, as all the mutual aid groups have in common. but we are able to be pretty nimble because we don't have as much bureaucracy as some of those larger organizations.
And that's been really important, I think, to us from the beginning is that we wanted to, people sometimes people say like you should get a website, you should advertise and stuff. It's like we want to keep it so that we can get to everyone in a reasonable amount of time because what we do, we want to do really well. Because partly because what every other interaction, or oftentimes every other interaction these people have is with the state or with the government somehow or with some sort of organization. It's basically with a bureaucracy that moves very, very slowly, and they can't count on it in a human way. It just may or may not help you at some time in the future, and there's not somebody on the other end who's really like rooting for you. They're just sort of doing their job with the paperwork. And so for us to be not just quick about it, but also like personal, where when we get a referral, I call or whoever is doing it, I often do it like call the mom or whoever has asked for help getting stuff and have a conversation about like what they need and like I tell them that stuff like what colors do you want? Like is there a certain type of thing you're looking for, a certain type of style? And give them the sense that like we're doing this together. This is a collaboration on like getting you set up. And so ask for what you need, ask for help. And like that's what we're here for. We're just people, it's not an institution that you're interacting with. It's just like friends you haven't met yet,
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
think that's really wonderful. If I could just jump in here, I'm noticing some questions
Oh, yeah.
in the chat, and I wonder if you
Sure.
want to take them or
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
want to
let's
wait
do it.
till the
Absolutely.
end. Okay.
No, let's
So
do it.
there are two questions. One is, one is there are three. How many families have you helped? Another one is, what's the process of donating things? And then there's another one from Dee, who I think is in Mount Rainier or Brentwood, asking about, are you working across Prince George's County, or do you just work with that one shelter?
Yeah, all great questions. So in reverse order, we do work across Prince George's County. At first, we tried really hard to keep it more local to make it easier on ourselves. And we just realized that people get housing wherever they get housing. Like they don't get to choose. And the truth is that actually there aren't very many places with affordable housing very close to Hyattsville. And so a lot of people were further south in the county, mid-county, I guess, like Capitol Heights down to like Suitland area. We got a lot of people who get housing down there. And so, yeah, it just became pretty clear that if we were gonna, and also that there was nothing else in Prince George's County for them. And so we figured if as long as we can handle it, we'll go wherever. If they're in DC, which they often are, we do try to refer them to some of the resources because, as you've said before, there's a lot more.
Yeah, exactly. And in Montgomery County, we refer them to Bare Necessities or Wider Circle. And sometimes we've had people move to Frederick, and we did help a family in Annapolis. Some families have their own transportation, or if they're able to rent a U-Haul, we can offer them reimbursement. Otherwise, we just have to depend on the good graces of our neighbors to give up their weekends and drive the U-Haul and help us make the deliveries, which is how we used to do all of it. But now in our third year, we're mixing it up a little bit and making it a little easier on our volunteers by bringing in families to shop in our temporary storage in the Mason building. Before that, Mark had piles of couches and mattresses in his living room that his kids climbed over, and his wife
They loved it. Yeah.
had to be very patient about. And I had beds on my porch, and I got citations from the city of Hyattsville. My husband thought we looked like the Beverly Hillbillies. There are things in my garage that would, when it started raining, I'd have to run out to make sure my garage wasn't flooding. So we are incredibly grateful to Kaylee Culp for being a good neighbor. She barely met us. She learned about our efforts, and she gave us the key to the entire Mason building on the corner of 43rd and Gallatin, is it? And said, hey, I'm trying to find a restaurant to lease the space to, but until that happens, until we get the capital to renovate, you all are welcome to store your items here for free. So that's been a game changer, because before that we had to use the very little money that our friends and neighbors and family members gave us to rent a corporate storage unit, and they jack up the price every month. It's you could hardly fit a car in there by the time they're charging you more than $400 a month. And that could buy a lot of new pillows and sheet sets and things like that. So, and we had to climb over everything to even get at it. I know that storage is a challenge for all of us mutual aid initiatives. So being able to have a huge storehouse where we set up like a free store and families can come and shop for what they need is just awesome. It's great we've had volunteer scouting groups come and help us sort our dishes. We've had Bob and Kathy, a retired couple who just left Hyattsville, but their ministry for Welcome Home Neighbor was just awesome. They would come in and pick up all the donated linens that had come in the week before, take it home, do a serious quality control check. They did not let any stain go unbleached or unnoticed. Wash up all the bedding, package it, label it, bring it back to us, put it on shelves. So we have gorgeous brand spanking clean linens that families can shop from, towels, washcloths. Those are things that families forget and often don't have. So we are, I don't know what we would do without Kaylee. And I think what we're hoping is we'd bring by local political leaders and even landlords of vacant property by and say, hey, look, we're really low maintenance. We don't need electricity. We don't need heat. We just need dry storage. This is temporary. Can you help us find more long-term storage, not just for us, but the other mutual aid initiatives in Hyattsville? And that's been really slow. And I'm very, very worried about when Kaylee will kindly ask us to leave and what on earth we're going to do, because we do help families county-wide. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the county services building around the corner where Arts and Ales Festival is held on the lawn every year. It literally says County Services Building. And it's been open as recent as 2020 because there are all these COVID-19 signs in the windows. And I've tried to talk to a number of politicians about what we're doing. Like, hey, we're running a county service. Can we just store our donations in the county services building? And there is absolutely no interest in that because they see it as a liability concern. And I'm sure that crossed Kaylee's mind as well, but to her, it was more important to help out a community initiative such as ours. And I wish there were more people like her who were willing to give us grace and make it possible for us to do what we do.
Let me just jump in here and go back to two questions. One, how many families have you served? But secondly, I also know that, Jamila, you were on the listserv a while back, maybe a week ago or 2 weeks ago, asking somebody to come pick up the stuff that they left in front of the building. So I think some people don't know where the building is. It's across the street from yoga space. It's a big brick building next to the park. But go ahead, tell them about not leaving this stuff.
Yeah. So, and I can answer both questions by going back to not only was the renting of a corporate storage unit not very functional and too expensive, and it was too small to really store very much stuff, but because we couldn't organize stuff, it was a very disorganized process. We had to just sort of go in there, and it was literally up to me and Jamila. We sort of had everything we had on hand in our heads, and we'd have to it was hard to get volunteers to help and take anything off our hands because they couldn't just go into the space and find stuff. It was all, we'd have to be like, somewhere under there, I think there's a jumbled bed
parts. Like,
so,
you wouldn't get a sprained ankle climbing over jumbled bed parts to pull out the mattress in the back. It was not a sustainable situation.
Right. I have sustained many injuries, in fact, like doing exactly that. But because of that, moving into the space that Kaylee provided at the Masonic Lodge, which is at 4207 Gallatin, that was a dramatic game changer because we could start organizing. This is to answer the question of how the donation process works. Now we can basically take things as they become available, because a lot of times people are moving out of the country and they want to get rid of really nice stuff that they just don't think is worth shipping. Or, there's just something that people that's big enough that people really need to get rid of it now. They're switching couches or whatever, and it's not going to be available in 6 months when we have room for it or whatever. So having a larger space that's organized, we field a lot of those, hey, could you guys use this couch? Here's a picture of it. And so people email us. A lot of times people text me, but really we prefer people to email us, and I can actually put it in the chat right now just before I forget. But it's neighbor welcome home. It's our name backward because welcome home neighbor was already taken on Gmail. Um, but people email us and ask, could we use X, Y, or Z or whatever? And a lot of times we just have people bring that stuff if it's small enough, bring it and leave it on our porches because then we can just move it over to the Masonic Lodge when we get a chance, and that's kind of very easy. We don't have to coordinate schedules. Um, we've got there's a guy in Mount Rainier named Scott who is a professional organizer for people's homes. And so people are constantly getting rid of perfectly good stuff because they just have too many things and he's organized it out of their house. And so he'll call me and say, hey, I've got like 20 queen size, brand new duvets that these people shouldn't have had in their house. But like I need to get rid of them. Can you come get them right now so that I don't have to deal with them? And I'm happy to do that. It's wonderful. So there we sort of have developed these relationships with people who know about us, and we don't want to get overwhelmed, and we have only limited time to pick stuff up, but we've got a little core of volunteers that will go and help us pick stuff up if it's furniture and people need it picked up from their place and delivered and stuff. And we're always happy to do that as long as we have the room because we know it'll go back out the door. There are things like beds. Almost everybody needs beds, couches, dining room tables, and chairs. For some reason, dining room chairs are really difficult to get a hold of. Dressers are like the number one commodity, especially nice modern ones.
Yeah.
But so we try to be choosier and choosier because we've got space and we've got a lot of people trying to ask us for stuff or to donate stuff. That allows us to be like, I sort of try to tell people, is this going to basically go out the door soon? Can I see a family wanting this soon? If it's sort of, if it's a corner, like a China hutch that has to be in a certain shaped corner, like, no, because no one's going to have that, and very few people are going to have space for it, and very few people are going to want it anyway. So over the years, we've sort of learned, and we're in our 5th year, by the way.
Ooh.
Yeah, we're in the middle of our 5th year
We
of doing
turned
this.
4 in May.
Yeah.
Wow.
Over the years, we've really learned like what can we reliably actually do so that we don't have too much stuff that doesn't go out the door again soon.
Yeah.
But to answer your question about stuff not getting dropped off, like absolutely, people have to reach out to us, and ideally, especially if it's a larger piece, send us a picture. We really need things to not be stained at all, at all. And
dignity quality.
Yeah, dignity quality is Jamila's really wonderful term for that. And so it's always helpful to see pictures. I'm always happy if I have time to come by and look at something if that's the best way to do it. But that has really allowed us to scale up because not only can people, families themselves come and shop in the space if they can get transportation to come and pick out things that they really want and things they may not have known that they needed, or had remembered that they needed. And they're like, oh, I actually totally need one of those. But also our volunteers, like that has been one of our biggest challenges is taking the load of doing this work off of just me and Jamila because we also have full-time jobs and young children. And so being able to just hand over to a volunteer, here's the family, here's their list, you talk to them, go in the space, and like you can shop for them, pull everything off the shelves, grab what they need, and then deliver it. So it's allowed for this like really, people have suggested over the years like, oh, you should get an inventory system and like an Excel spreadsheet and stuff. And it's like, actually, that is all ways for things to go wrong. Like everything you just mentioned is something that will break on day one and no one will use it again. What's really great is for the inventory to be physical. Of like you go into the space, if it's on the shelf, it's available, take it off the shelf, put it in a pile, set it off to the side, put somebody's name on it so that somebody else doesn't take it. Done. That's it. That's all we really need. And that way it can be really decentralized. You don't need us or anything. And that has allowed us to go much faster. I think we were doing, fewer families much more slowly. In the first couple of years, we did maybe like 50 families, and we're now, Well, I know it wasn't even that fast, maybe like 20. But anyways, we've done 135. We're currently on our 135th family. Um, and it's
Mhm.
much clip now because we've got this core of volunteers that
Mhm.
help take things off our hands, and we can just sort of say like, just go take care of it, and then they text us like, done, it was great, what a nice family, and we're like, cool, that was that was awesome.
Yeah. I'm looking at
So a
some of
couple
the,
of other questions have
Yeah,
come
yeah.
up.
yeah.
One is it feasible to pursue a 501c3 for you? But maybe before you need to answer that, it is somebody asked, Maureen asked, what's the liability
Hmm.
question? And I could
I
just
mean,
say that from
mhm.
HAP's point of view,
Oh yeah.
governments are generally very afraid of
Hmm.
liability because they have somewhat deep pockets and they're afraid of getting
Hmm.
sued for something.
Yeah,
Hmm.
And some of them have too many lawyers and they're always afraid of getting
Yeah.
sued. But
yeah.
you can add to that.
No, I think that's exactly right. Wanika Fisher was telling me that, oh, someone's suing the county all the time. We pay out so many millions of dollars in lawsuits. So even if it's a frivolous lawsuit, the time that it would take to but still, to me, that's a reality, apparently. But it shouldn't. You shouldn't look at every request with one size fits all. Like obviously, Mark and I are not doing this. If we sprain our ankle in Kaylee's lodge, we're not going to sue Kaylee. If that same thing happens in the county building, like I think it's frustrating when bureaucracies kind of have a hammer to answer every question when they can look at our record and see that we really are just trying to help. The 501c3 market I've talked about from time to time. It probably will probably get there at some point. For right now, it hasn't been a barrier not having it for us. And I think we're just both incredibly busy that the time it would take to pursue that, we just haven't found yet. And to Mark's point, there is some beauty in the simplicity of our model and being truly neighbor helping neighbor and we've gotten some support from a woman named Edith as well as Allie,
Yeah.
who are helping to answer our email and recruit volunteers and um, respond to donation offers. So that's really helped Mark in my mental load to be able to juggle everything. So I'm sure that'll happen eventually. In terms of what people can do to help, anytime you're talking to a politician or a developer or um, any time that that the time is right, that you can plant the idea of, gosh, Hyattsville has so many wonderful mutual aid initiatives. Wouldn't it be great if we had a hub for these spaces to provide the kind of secure storage that they need to keep doing their great work? I think helping us scout for space would be so helpful. Mark and I have tried many avenues and gotten pretty discouraged over the years. We would really welcome that. There are also a few things that we can always use. If you can email Ollie, or even if she's willing to let you text her. If you're at IKEA and you see this wonderful pillow sale, sure, grab 3 or 5 pillows so we can give our families brand new pillows. Those are things that go really, really fast. Silverware is also something that we always need. If you or know someone who are upgrading their silverware, it doesn't have to be matching. Right now, for some reason, we have either abundance of forks or abundance of spoons, but we're short on the other. So that's something, as well as silver trays.
Guess that's just for people who don't eat a lot of soup. They just like get rid of their spoons. Like I never use these.
Yeah, exactly. So there are little things like that that we'll never say no to. Nice kitchen garbage cans, those are usually better to have new. Shower curtains. So if you're seeing a sale on things, or if there's something that you have in really good shape that you can imagine a family using, we don't want scratched up Teflon when people upgrade their cookware, but if you have some nice old-fashioned stainless steel cookware, we would gladly take that. There are a few things like that that we rarely say no to, but otherwise, just email what you'd like to donate and keep in mind, keep your eye on the Hope listserv, because Allie or Edith will be posting lists of needs that we might have when families move.
Okay, a couple more questions.
Yeah.
Dee asks, well, I want to just go back because Ann Barrett has asked this a couple of times and you've
Oh,
answered most of it.
sorry.
Thank you very much for everything you're doing and how can we help? And obviously Ann knows where there is space, so maybe she can help you find space.
Yeah, and I will say that like I have asked Anne this question before, and I just sort of let it like go in the background. And this is one of the bandwidth problems for us. And Lisa, you know this better than anybody else. Of like, I think we started having a conversation about how maybe we could ask you about what it's like to become a 501c3 like a year ago. And then we had that conversation like several months ago, and I'm still getting around to like responding to your last email just because we're so like carrying the weight of our actual daily lives has just been difficult while doing this work. And so I think one of the things we'd really a reason why we actually would necessitate incorporating as a nonprofit would be to hire somebody to do administrative work really consistently for sort of on, we've always got people going on vacation or whatever. And so we're always having to kind of step in for whoever's not around. And I usually try to always be willing to carry the burden so that it keeps happening, even if there's nobody else to do it. So it'd be really great to kind of build a little bit more stability into it that isn't us just taking our time that we really honestly don't have. And
Yeah.
So yes, go ahead, Lisa.
You go.
Well, so that's
a question about
what can we do to help?
Recruiting volunteers.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, you can email. Yes,
I put it in the chat earlier, but I'll put it in again right here. Just
please email that, or if you know someone, and indicate what kind of volunteering you're interested in. For example, is it putting together furniture? Is it driving your minivan if others can pack it? Is it sourcing things?
Yeah, as in we've had people who just kind of keep an eye on the listserv, and when something really nice gets offered, they snatch it for us, and just having those sort of feelers out there is really helpful. We've got people who like I said, Jamila said, we've got always somebody kind of doing the linens, of like washing the linens and folding them and organizing. So they're all different kinds of jobs that with like people have different talents and abilities that they can put toward it. And there's always something that we could use. And so don't think that it needs to be one type of thing or that it needs to be moving people physically. It's so much more than that. But the one thing that we've always really appreciated, and we've got sort of a small and growing core of volunteers that does this, is the people who are willing to take responsibility for some little chunk of it, where we don't have to think about it, it just gets done. Because we've always got plenty of people, or, we've always got a fair number of people who are willing to show up on a move day and help move, because it's a finite amount of time they can start and end, and it's great. And that's wonderful, and we need those people. But when people are willing to be like, I will take this family on, I will make sure they get taken care of, you don't have to worry about it, that makes a world of difference. So that type of volunteer is just absolutely priceless and golden for us.
Ooh, mattress pads, waterproof mattress pads is another
we always need those.
Preoccupation of mine. We had a single dad with an autistic child who somehow in the rush of getting him moved, we didn't realize that he didn't have a mattress pad. He probably didn't realize he didn't have a mattress pad. The child wet the bed and then the mattress is ruined. So we had to do a do-over. I don't know why twin beds don't come with an automatic waterproof cover.
They really should.
It's just makes no sense because kids have accidents. So that's even more of a need next time you're in one of those stores that has a sale on twin size waterproof. Why mattress pads aren't waterproof, I don't understand. Would be really, really helpful. We've also, if you know Girl Scout or Boy Scout troops who are looking for service projects, we've had some really lovely partnerships with them. We've had them create, or we have a bar mitzvah project right now where a boy is assembling some kitchen kits. We can have bathroom kits, bedroom kits. with some of the essentials in a cute little basket. We've also had Girl Scout troops come and do reorganization in our space, which is a really lovely thing for parents and kids to do together for a couple hours. We've had Oddfellows come in and help us do some organizing projects.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they can't. I think when you were away the
From
last
across
time.
the street?
Yeah,
That
from
was
across the
Oddfellows?
street. Yeah. So that was neat. And one thing that when people are doing a hands-on project and they're looking at what we have, they might say, "Hey, do you guys have any spatulas or kitchen utensils?" And we'd be like, "No, we're running low on those." Oh, well, would you like me to get some? Even like going shopping at thrift stores for some of those things that we need. If you're a neat freak and you want to come in and organize our kitchen shelving,
By all means.
in inventory, I think it's really easy for that to get messed up. But in terms of how we avoid burnout, and Loretta, it's so wonderful being on this call with you because we know each other from back in the day when I was in social work school. And you haven't changed a bit, Loretta. You look exactly the same.
Same with you. Thank you.
But yeah, that's a great question. I think Mark and I have been honest with each other from time to time. We have approached burnout.
Well, yeah, well past.
Well past.
Yeah.
And that's when we asked for help on the
Yeah.
listserv and said, "Hey, we need help." Even just having Edith and Ollie check the emails and do some of that admin stuff so Mark and I can go on vacation and we don't have to be on the front lines all of the time has really helped a lot. And then we can kind of be their support backup people.
Yeah. The dream is that we either have sort of like a central paid person who kind of handles things, and then we've got that kind of stable route that doesn't change and that everybody can sort of stand back from. But also that there are enough of us that we can all kind of trade off responsibilities and nobody feels like they're doing more than they can handle. Because like we said, it's pretty decentralized work where it's one family at a time. And so if you are willing to just be there for that family and get what they need, you have accomplished the entirety of our work for that family. And it doesn't really need to be this big complex structure or this big sort of top-down hierarchy. Like you can be the person to do that work and to kind of see it through to the end. And so the more people we have that are willing to do that, the more manageable it becomes for everybody. And Jamila and I can keep thinking about sort of like the more long-term things and the sort of broader administrative questions. But having people to actually manage the work is the hardest thing because it's an unbelievable amount of bandwidth to expend to be like doing our jobs, doing kid stuff, and then also managing like multiple moves at a time. So the more we can kind of hand off and spread around, the better.
And another idea is, thinking about the holidays coming up around the corner, it can be a nice project for a family or an extended family or a little neighborhood or a group to adopt. So if the Oddfellows or whoever want to say, "Hey, in November in honor of Thanksgiving, I'd like our group would like to move in a family soup to nuts." That would be amazing. If anyone knows a rugby team, I'm feeling my age, and sometimes as I was putting together an IKEA something, this thought popped in my head. This is not my ministry. I mean, I'm good at lots of things, but putting together beds is not my strong suit. And sometimes carrying those big tables and things is definitely a physical experience that goes beyond many of our abilities. So if there's a group of like high school Boy Scouts or a sports team, or if folks have neighbors or grandkids who are looking for a service project and they want to, again, soup to nuts move a family, that can be a very meaningful project. We've had a couple of moms and teenage sons do it together. That can be really, really helpful because our volunteers do get burnt out too. And how we know that is a family usually finds out like the day or two before that they're moving and what the address is, and here's your key and you have to leave the shelter in 2 days, go. And then they reach out to us and we're like, "Okay, guys, this is a great opportunity for this family. Can we recruit 3 minivans to help make this move happen in the next week?" And then sometimes we get crickets. So,
Which is understandable. A lot of
it's
times
understandable,
people
right?
have done several in a row up to that point, and sort of like our usual go-to people are, they've already expended what extra time they had,
Hmm.
if we just get enough back to back. And so the
Yeah,
deeper that bench can be, the better
exactly.
off we are.
Exactly. So helping us be evangelists for this program when you're talking to people, exactly. Youth groups, local high schools, yes. And again, it's a bandwidth issue. So if you all have access to those folks and
Mm.
can encourage them to reach out to us, that would be really, really helpful.
There've been several suggestions about, local high schools taking it on as a service project. Can you award service hours? Are you
Yes,
set
Yeah,
up to do
we're
that?
happy to
we
sign the
do that.
sheets. Do it
Absolutely.
Okay.
all the time.
Okay. And then I haven't heard you say anything about money. Do you take donations?
So we do, and we wouldn't ask for it on a large scale or go on a big fundraising campaign, I think, until we had nonprofit status, just because not only
Like,
do we want to be able
the
to
state
offer
will
that
come
to
after you.
people, but it's also, at some point, that get complicated to handle a lot of money. But we've been handling small amounts of money since we got started. We've always managed to have enough on hand to buy the little expendables or
Mhm.
like pillows. Like people should sleep on new pillows, you know. And so those kind of things we always have a little bit. We spend couple $100, usually on a family, just getting those little things new. Towels, we really try to do new if we can. And so we've always had people just give us a little bit at a time. We've got a couple of families that donate regularly, monthly, which is really amazing.
Mm.
But we would love to incorporate also for that reason, because I think one of the things that we might be able to accomplish is, especially if there's a little bit of money involved in our new space, wherever we end up going to, if there's some kind of manageable amount of rent, and then we're thinking about hiring a person too. I've always thought, and Lisa and I discussed this last time we were together, I've always thought that we might be able to kind of basically crowdfund a very small budget to get those things done, where we're not trying to have a whole operation, we're not trying to have many employees or like a lot of overhead, but just enough to pay whatever our minimal rent is in a space, pay for, little things that people need, that we want to buy new for them to make it as nice as possible for them, and then to pay a person. And so I think if we did that, we could ask, enough people know about us now that we could ask everybody who knows about us and wants to support us to give us $10 a month, and that could like fill out our budget. I think once we figure out the incorporation thing and sort of get a handle on how we want to do that, that would be the next step, is actually having not just a way for people to donate for, but ideally for people a way to give a certain amount of money every month so that we could count on that as our budget. And I think
So,
it could be a very small amount of money, and we would just ask enough people to do it that we could
yeah.
all have an investment in it as that work.
So I'm wondering if there's a lawyer on this call that might
Mhm.
be able to help you do the 501c3 bit. Well, I'm
Just
not asking them to respond, but maybe there
hypothetically.
is, and maybe they'll come back to you. I'm
Okay.
wondering also,
Oh, gift cards.
I'm
Yes.
I think, it might be easier if people could raise their hands and you could call on them.
Oh,
Maureen
yeah.
asks,
Sure.
can you
Yeah, we're
use
happy to
gift
talk.
Gift
cards?
cards. Yes. Yes, it's really nice when we move a family in to be able to say, and neighbors in Hyattsville collected these items for you. Here's a $50, $100 gift card to Target. That just like makes people so happy. They can pick out, the color bath mat that they
Or
wanted.
school clothes or whatever they need, for it to be something that's not just whatever we've given,
Yeah,
something that
to
they can choose
Right.
purchase
they
what they
how they
need.
use it. Yeah.
So yes, all that's very helpful. Amazon wish list, we've thought about it. We just haven't had the bandwidth to manage that, but all great ideas.
And Dee says that she has contacts who can do a 501c3. So Dee, I'd suggest that you follow up with them on that
Yeah.
email
Email
afterwards.
us. Yeah.
Please, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
with Lisa, we have yet to discuss this on a larger scale, but the broad idea that we were sort of talking to Lisa about, and that Jamil and I have been bandying about for a long time, is the idea of having something that's not just for us, but is actually like an
Mhm.
organization that is a mutual aid organization that can incorporate a lot of the work that's going on in this area. We've got so many
Mhm.
different organizations that are doing um, different kinds of work, and a lot of people who've done exactly what we've done, like Route One Mutual Aid, sort of
Right.
stepping up and figuring out how to get ICE impacted families food in the last year. their story sounds exactly like ours, where they just realized there was a gap and started figuring out how to fill it, kind of ad hoc without having any idea what they were doing, and they've figured it out. And so have we, but like we would love to create sort of an umbrella organization where we can fundraise together, we can gather stuff together, but we can have a space and do whatever we need to do to hold on to that space in terms of insurance and rent or whatever, so that we can all use it together. And anybody who has an initiative like ours or is doing work like ours could kind of like be under that umbrella and use the resources and space together. So that's something that we also want to consider, is how feasible that could be, and what exactly the best way to go about doing that would be. Because I think um, there's a lot of, I think, duplication, like administrative duplication between all these really small organizations that only have barely enough bandwidth to fill out their paperwork.
Yeah.
Like, what if we
Right.
only had to do that one time and we could all
Right.
share the burden, you know?
And Sarah from
Chris.
yes, thank you. From
Heisel Swap.
Heisville Swap, thank you. She and her friends and neighbors have, piles of kids' clothes in their basement and porch until the two swaps happen. And they have 501(c)(3) status, but they use the few $1,000s they get in donations every year to run the actual event, and to pay for storage is just cost prohibitive. So yeah, I mean, very few of us, including Hyattsville Aging in Place, right, needs to have an office with a full-time staff member. We just need secure space. And why can't we share that? Because it's one thing that makes Hyattsville very special, is there are these handful of really amazing initiatives that I think should be the envy of the whole county and state. But why can't we conspire to figure out how to find affordable, accessible space when that's really all we need at this stage? We don't need office working space. We don't even need toilets. I'm telling you, we don't need plumbing or electricity. We had volunteers come in to pick up donations with headlamps on in the Mason building. And it was a fun adventure for all of us. And
I would say that, Hyattsville Aging in Place does not have an office. It does collect lots of stuff in somebody's garage, that we lend out all the time. We do not have a full-time employee, although we are able to pay 2 part-time employees, which we could do without.
Great. But now with the remote, workforce, it's really easy to not have to work where you're storing things. Also, Rosanna Weaver is initiating a call on September 15th about the Mennonite Central Committee potentially bringing a thrift store, one of their nationwide thrift store operations here, which is another idea that I'm excited to hop on that call about. I just feel like there's so much synergy. There's probably a strength in numbers opportunity here. And yes, finding space is hard, but there's so much vacant property. I really hope the fines for keeping vacant property go up year after year to make that a disincentive for property owners to have all this storefront property just sit vacant. When there's some really amazing initiatives who just need space. So we'd really appreciate your creative thinking about it, and want to empower you to talk to the powers that be, because Mark and I are tired and fighting that battle. And Kaylee could call us any moment and say, okay, here's your 30-day notice. And oh my gosh, I can't imagine how we could continue if we didn't have free space. In the future, we could help pay for space. But again, why should the last time we looked at space with a property owner, they quoted us $6,000 a month. So that's not in any of our budgets. But there's got to be a solution. This is not rocket science.
I think getting the mayor of Hyattsville and maybe some of the other towns, and maybe getting together with our new county council person might be at least a start to look. But that's something we might.
Yeah, we've talked to city officials a little bit, and I think it's just hard because they don't have an incentive that exists already. They could create something, but that's a process, And I think we've planted that seed for sure. Of like maybe we should start that process of creating some sort of incentive for sharing space if you don't plan on using it anytime soon. Maybe you get some sort of, you know, either a tax write-off or, you know, ideally a waiver from a fine for keeping
Yeah.
space vacant or whatever. There's some sort of way that it's a good thing for the owners to share space with us. We're working on it. I think we'll be able to figure it out, but it's been harder than I think we had hoped, given how much vacant space there is in this area, to find somebody who's willing to work with us. And I
Great.
will say real quick, Lisa, just because you asked, if people do want to share funding with us, that is always very welcome and very helpful. Understanding that we don't have 501c3 status yet, it's not tax deductible, but we often take very small donations as it is, and every little bit helps. Every little bit goes toward, you know, buying somebody a pillow, which is just a few dollars, but that's how we've been able to afford that.
Renting a U-Haul.
Renting a U-Haul, there are always expenses. Renting the U-Hauls and gas is something that goes with almost every move.
Great.
And so we can, if you did want to donate, you can use that email address that I put in the chat to PayPal us money is the easiest way to do it. But you can also just email, if that doesn't work for you for whatever reason, you can email that email and Allie or whoever is answering will set you up with some other way to do it. But we always appreciate any little bit of help.
Let me ask whether there are any additional questions. We're only at 3 o'clock and we can go till 3:30, but if does anybody have want to put their hands up? I don't know where that little thing is. Is that under participants, Carter?
Like
It's
putting your
under
hand
more,
up.
isn't it?
It should be under React.
React.
The heart
The
react.
little heart, you can raise your hand.
React. Okay.
Mhm.
Does that Loretta, do you have your, oops, I think she went away.
Oh.
Okay. Let me see. Are there other people that have some questions or want to raise or make a statement or?
Thank you for those of you who have to bow out. Thank you so much for your encouraging words.
Yeah.
It really means a lot. Thank you.
It doesn't have to be now too. I think we're happy to keep this conversation going, and we love obviously collaborating. That's the whole idea here, is that we're all kind of working together, and when everybody's like, what if you do this? We're like, yes, great, go do it. You know? And so we love when people want to just talk stuff out, even if it's just using your mental bandwidth to help, you know, think through things. That's always helpful. So even if you want to offline or another time chat or get together for coffee or email us and just, you know, that's always helpful, you know.
That's great. I think Lena was suggesting that all you have to do is put in the top 10, your top 10 wish list, which you've already got: pillows, you know, shower curtains, things like that. You could just do that. And I think you should ask Lena Parikh if she will do that for you. She's not here anymore.
Exactly. That's
Great
exactly how it's
idea.
Here
done.
anymore, but you
You have to be
follow up
careful
with her.
having ideas, Lena, because that's how they get you. At Welcome Home Neighbor, you suddenly find yourself the donation czar.
Yeah. You'll
Have
be
you
dumpster
thought
diving in
about
no time.
rent?
What's that?
Question: have you thought about renting residential property? Well, around here it's really expensive.
Oh.
Yeah, we actually did talk to somebody who had a pretty low rental price for a house nearby. Honestly, the house just wasn't in good enough shape, I think, for us to use. It would have been a pretty rough space to store stuff in. But if there was, I mean, I always say that like it can be a certain amount of money. You know, like it could be $2,000, I think, even, and we could find a way to pay that every month. But this place that had lots of commercial space that they were offering us for $6,000 a month, it's like that's not a good use of donation money, you know, like at our scale. That would be sort of reaching beyond our means. It'd be a lot to ask people to help us pay that much when I think there probably is another solution. So I think if it's a reasonable amount, we can figure out how to fund it. It's just a question of finding the right space that actually really serves our purpose.
Well, this has been wonderful.
Mhm.
I've enjoyed
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you so much for
much.
having us. Yeah.
And for all your enthusiasm and great ideas.
And thank you for all your work. You've inspired us. We've been trying to follow in your footsteps.
Well,
Absolutely.
thank you. Do you ever have older people that
Mhm.
that you need to place in places besides
Yeah.
us? No. I
Yeah.
mean that need a space immediately.
No, and Lisa, I think we've actually asked you for guidance a couple of times with some of our older people that asked for help in terms of just connecting them with some other resources. There was somebody who needed.
Do you remember the name of that apartment nearby? That it was the someone who worked at the apartment was reaching out to us.
Oh, yeah. Oh my.
Was
What
it
is the place
Friendship
that's on
Arms?
42nd called? Yes.
Friendship Arms.
Yeah. They someone, the manager there or somebody there has reached
Service
out.
coordinator, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Not that often, but she's reached out before. So yeah, that definitely happens, and we're definitely happy to help really anybody who asks.
Wait, but they were looking for furniture or
Yes.
Yeah,
They're
she had a
looking for
resident who
beds for
needed
people.
something. Yeah.
huh.
Um,
Well, yeah. In that
we
case,
can
you
talk
would.
about that offline because that was actually kind of a complicated
Yeah.
situation. But
Right.
you mean in terms of people donating? Is that what you were asking about?
No. I mean, in terms of people who are in shelters who
Yeah.
need to be moved. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And obviously, like, people who are aging in place are even less set up to move themselves and acquire everything they need. And so we've been happy to help in those situations. We've had a couple people that I think we've had some ongoing relationships with. One woman in particular who's become sort of like an adopted aunt of mine because she's comfortable. And I have to say, like, kind of in closing, this is one of the things that I've appreciated most about this work is it's given me actual relationships with people, not just kind of showing up and doing some volunteer work and getting to say that it's for something good, which is great, but being able to actually interact with the people and know that they are comfortable calling me because they know me. If they need something, if they really get like, we've had moms that we've helped move in call us 6 months later and say, I'm not going to ask all the time. I don't want this to be a thing, but my fridge is empty and my kids are hungry. Is there any way that you could help me out? And we say, like, of course, like
Yeah.
we are not going to let you starve, and so
Right.
we give them some money to go shopping, or I've brought people groceries, and
Or
there was,
it's hot, we need fans.
yeah, exactly.
So we have a stockpile of fans because not everybody has air conditioning.
So just knowing that people have someone that they know they can call and will answer, like that just makes so much difference. And it's not an institution, it's not a government program. It's like a person that you know. And one of my favorite things that's happened through this work is this really lovely young woman who we had helped her move in with her daughter called me, I think, a couple years after we met and said, a friend of mine way down in the South County has offered to give my daughter her Christmas presents this year. But we have no way to get there to pick them up, and she has no way to bring them to us. Could you drive us down there? And she couldn't think of anybody else that she could ask to drive her, and she called me,
That's
and
great.
we had a great time, like hanging out and talking about how we both did track in high school, like on the way down to pick up her daughter's stuff, and her daughter was in the back seat asleep the whole time. But it was really like it was so lovely that it was just a favor. It wasn't work. It wasn't, something that we did through this organization or through the institution. It was just somebody who needed some help and knew I would be there for her. And that was just so wonderful to be able to be that and to have that connection, with somebody that otherwise I wouldn't have actually met. So that it really it's really meant a lot to me to have this way of being there for people and sharing what little we can offer.
And it's really wonderful that you are there. Thank you for everything that you're doing. I don't see additional questions. I see hearts and thank yous and whatever from people.
Hearts back.
Yeah. Thank you all so much.
Yeah, thanks a lot
Yeah.
for spending this
Let
time
me
with
just,
us.
I think what we will do is that people can if you've got some last questions, just raise your hand. Otherwise, we will close. I want to just mention that we are back up in September on the 26th, corridor conversations on your spring gardening starts in the fall. So come and listen to Renaud Bouchard. In October, we're doing something on house tours. And in November, there's a session on small bodies that make up our skies with astronomer from, I think, University of Maryland, Dr. Lamina.
Oh,
Paula
wow,
Cola.
that's so cool. I love how eclectic the topics are.
Oh, yeah. You know, all of these are up on our YouTube channel, and there are some really, one of the most watched YouTube is a thing on quilting, African American quilting. So
Cool.
lots of different topics. 50 of them. This will come up, I think Carter will get it edited and place it. You say, Carter, when do you think?
By mid next week.
Yeah. So this will be back up, and
every-
so it'll be on our YouTube channel. So you get, maybe you'll get some response from that as well. So
No, and that's wonderful to be able to send people to. Like, if you want to know more about it, here's 75 minutes worth of content.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Thank you so
Awesome.
much
Thank you,
again.
Thanks for having us. It's been
everybody.
great
Really
to be with you all.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you.
All right.
There's one new, y'all. Wait, there's one last. Y'all are an inspiration.
Aw.
From
Thanks,
Betty
Shelby.
Dickerson and well, it's from Shelby B. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, we're getting to see a whole bunch of people who have helped us and
Yeah,
been involved
definitely.
with
Those
it.
names
The big
sound
community.
familiar.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's
All right.
great.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.